Secretary Yellen, I understand that you will be giving a speech tomorrow regarding digital asset regulation. I don't want to force you to reveal any spoilers here. I do want to touch on something that I believe is just at the core of developing any well-regulated digital asset ecosystem, and that is how can participants securely and reliably assert their digital identity, online and offline, with the appropriate controlled anonymity that is being developed in the EU and elsewhere. I was very encouraged that recently Assistant Secretary for Terrorist Financing and Financial Crimes, Elizabeth Rosenberg, she recently announced that the Treasury planned to make 2022, quote, a year of action for digital identity. There are really a host of reasons why Treasury may be the most appropriate authority to help deploy a secure digital identity framework. I'm also very encouraged that the technical components for a privacy-preserving, you call it a crypto financial driver's license, are actually in place. The mobile ID or digital driver's license that are being rolled out by a number of states are based on interoperable standards originally developed at NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and now being adopted by the International Standards Organization around the world. And they've actually been implemented for both iPhones and Android. These allow a modern cell phone to be used as a very high-quality, privacy-preserving biometric second factor that will be absolutely crucial in combating identity fraud and many other online misbehaviors. Your department's work towards combating illicit finance, preventing government benefits fraud, soon as central bank digital currency would all greatly benefit from an improved and internationally operable digital identity framework. So can you speak a little bit about how Treasury might be well equipped for such an effort that will really require an extraordinary level of international and interagency cooperation?
So I believe this is a very important initiative. I'm not an expert on the details, but I would say to you that Treasury has very wide-ranging equities in digital identity space, in part because we administer public benefits, tax refunds, and because we have a broader role in the financial system. So we absolutely want to explore how we can develop and implement digital identity solutions that will coordinate across the government. And we're at this point fleshing out actions that we can take to advance this agenda. If you have specific ideas, we would welcome the opportunity to discuss them with you, and I can have my staff give a briefing on what we're thinking about as well, if that would be useful. But like to have the benefit of your thinking.
Collaboration will be essential from the start. I mean, if you're really going to have a central bank digital currency and you need a means of authenticating yourself as a legitimate participant for a central bank digital currency, and you want foreign nationals to to participate in your central bank digital currency, you're going to have agreements, at least among the free democracies of the world, as to how this is really going to work. And so I urge you, it seems very much in line with the Biden administration's push towards getting the free democracies of the world to act coherently, to do things like preventing corruption, financial fraud, and this is is going to be really at the heart of this. Can you say a little bit about the executive order related to crypto that's come out and how you see Treasury's participation?
The executive order related to digital assets.
Correct.
Yes, I mean the president has asked the agencies, but Treasury plays an important role in assessing the future of money, and that entails the role of digital assets, how we can create an environment in which responsible innovation can flourish, but there's adequate protection of consumers, investors, financial stability concerns, risks of illicit finance. We need a regulatory framework that I think we don't have at this point, and want to make recommendations as to how we can safely do this. Also, look at the pros and cons of a central bank digital currency.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And guys, I come back with that video just to make you think. And we had Janet Yellen in front of the House Financial Committee. And she did not seem herself. Janet Yellen is normally calm and collected. A lot of this meeting was scripted, but a few of them was not, and it was very entertaining. We know these sanctions on Russia are set up to hurt America, not to hurt Russia. I proved it time and time again. It already planned back in 2014. But the American people are now filling it in the pocket. And then also cryptocurrencies. We know the robots, algorithms, and drones are waiting in the back to take over this economy. They are the ones that's going to be using cryptocurrencies while the sheep go inside the metaverse. But remember I told you, Janet Yellen and Gary Gensler are the chess pieces for the New World Order. We have not seen Janet Yellen in a while. And then plus she's going to be doing a speech tomorrow on cryptocurrencies. They're ready to roll out the red carpet for crypto, their education. But remember, as they're educating, the Fed is going to start shrinking the liquidity out of the market, hitting stocks and cryptos. So the sheep will stay away. They won't educate themselves the same way we have the stock market. Trillions of dollars are moved on the stock market, but the average person is not going to get in. Why? Because first, they're not fully educated. They have not educated themselves, and second, they allow the Hegelian dialectic to put fear in their heart so they don't enter. Not understanding that the whole game is rigged, because we know when it comes to the New World Order, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
To live today. And there are a lot of factors for inflation. I get that. I do want to ask you, going back to the American Rescue Plan before we voted on it, Larry Summers, one of your predecessors under Clinton, talked about the package, and he said, I'm quoting, he said, I think this is the least responsible macroeconomic policy we've had in the last 40 years. He's right, isn't he, Madam Secretary?
Well, he's not right, and I'm sorry I have to differ with his assessment. You have an American economy that is enjoying the strongest job market that we have had in decades. Americans feel confident of their ability to get jobs and to move to better jobs. To think that a year, 2 years after a pandemic struck our country and unemployment was in the double digits, rather than waiting for a decade as we had to after the financial crisis to recover the jobs that we lost. This country is enjoying a 3.6% unemployment rate and has seen the creation of over 500,000 jobs a month in recent months. Americans' financial conditions overall are very strong. If you ask the largest banks in the country that keep track of checking account balances of their customers at all levels of income and
Let me
wealth.
reclaim my time, Madam Secretary. To put you on the record, you're saying the people feel good about the economy today. The American people feel good about the economy.
Well, they're concerned about inflation, and that's entirely understandable. And I'm concerned about it.
Because they're seeing the highest inflation that they've seen in 40 years, correct?
Yes, it is. And
let me ask you about this. Yesterday, San Francisco Fed President Mary Daly was speaking. She was talking about inflation at a 40-year high. She said about that's as harmful as not having a job. She's right about that, isn't she?
Well, of course, it erodes the ability of households to purchase a wide array of goods and services. So yes, it is. But remember that especially for the lowest income Americans, wage increases have been more rapid than inflation. And for pensioners, Social Security
reclaiming my time, the wages are not keeping up with everyday goods and services, correct?
For low-income Americans, on
for every
average,
American.
That is not true. For low-income Americans, their wage gains have exceeded that.
How about for middle class Americans? Are wage gains exceeding the price increases, or price increases exceeding wage gains for middle class Americans?
Well, over the last year, the price increases have exceeded the wage gains for middle.
Let me ask you about.
Don't filibuster me on this one, please. But last time you appeared here with Chair Powell, you had claimed you felt inflation was at that point transitory. Do you still believe that today?
So,
very short, please.
I think when I use the word transitory, I was thinking that it's related to the pandemic, and that when the pandemic goes away, that will make a big difference.
Do you still believe it's transitory?
I believe that the pandemic, unfortunately, has been and will be longer lasting than I anticipated.
So you still, basically you're saying the pandemic is still happening, therefore that's why we're still seeing inflation.
Well, I think that's one of the contributors to it.
Things that they are talking about is the increase in the cost of fertilizer. Something most Americans would not even remotely consider. But
this committee are concerned about the potential use of cryptocurrencies and other digital assets to evade international sanctions imposed on Russia for its illegal invasion of Ukraine. The U.S. and other G7 nations recently pledged to work together to ensure the Russian state, its elites, and oligarchs will not be able to utilize digital assets to sidestep these sanctions. How is the Treasury Department working to carry out this pledge?
Well, we are concerned about sanctions avoidance, and we recognize that digital assets present opportunities for doing exactly that. So first, I would say that we're monitoring for any attempts to use cryptocurrency to evade our sanctions, and we have ample enforcement authority which we won't hesitate to use. We are tracking carefully, using all the tools at our disposal, the assets of oligarchs and other sanctioned individuals. We're working very closely, exchanging information on this with our partners in the so-called repo task force. The Department of Justice announced a new task force called Cryptoteacher, which is designed to use U.S. law enforcement resources to identify and prosecute sanctions evasion. And FinCEN issued an alert to financial institutions to help them recognize suspicious transactions in this regard.
And Hydra, Russia's most prominent darknet market. On the one hand, I think this announcement demonstrates the concern I have about how the dark web and cryptocurrencies can be utilized for illicit and criminal behavior, and that cyber criminals operating in Russia often operate with support of Vladimir Putin and his regime, but more importantly, sends a message to Putin and cyber criminals around the world that the United States, in coordination with its allies, will continue to disrupt these networks and cut off all avenues for potential sanctions evasion by Russia.
If I can move on, I've been a strong supporter of establishing appropriate guardrails around the cryptocurrency space that will both protect consumers and encourage innovation here in the United States. This includes my discussion draft, the Stablecoin Innovation and Protection Act, which would establish guidelines on issuing qualified stablecoins. One area I'm particularly concerned about is ensuring that bad actors are not able to use cryptocurrency of any kind to launder money or fund nefarious activities. Can you talk a little bit about efforts Treasury is taking to ensure actors like terrorists or Russian oligarchs are to prevent them from using crypto and avoid sanctions regimes?
Yes.
I know you talked about this a little. If you can expand on that, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Sure. I mean, we are aware of the possibility clearly that crypto could be used as a tool to evade sanctions, and we're carefully monitoring to make sure that that doesn't occur. But I would say we have a good deal of authority in this area, and are using it and will use it. And it's harder on a large scale for an economy to actually use crypto to evade sanctions. Even large scale transactions would become apparent by those who um, regularly examine the blockchain. We would see that there were large transactions taking place. Exchanges, those who use crypto need to get in and out of it to um, buy things in hard currencies. And exchanges are subject to AML, CFT regulations. So they're part of the financial system that is subject to those regulations. And trying to use crypto on a large scale simply, we think, is something that is not easy to do. So it is a channel we're worried about. We haven't seen significant evasion through crypto so far, but we'll monitor carefully and use our authorities that we do have to make sure that this isn't a major avenue for evasion.
Thankful and agree with a lot of the sanctions that you're putting on the Russian economy, the oligarchs, all the other things you're doing. I don't disagree with those things. I think we both do that and more. My concern is that it got done late. We should have had this done instead of being reactive. We should have been proactive. And we knew that the Russians were building 3 hospitals on the Ukrainian border. We knew they were going in, and yet we did nothing until after the fact. So my comment to you, my question to you this morning is, knowing that this was going to happen, we did nothing. I think the ranking member made a comment this morning about China, knowing that they're going to go in. In fact, there was a published report in the newspapers last week that said that China was going to go into Taiwan this fall and decided not to do it. I don't know whether that report is true or not, but it was in the paper, so therefore I think we need to take it seriously. And if that's the case, is administration, are you working with administration? Are you putting plans in place as a Treasury Secretary to come with some deterrence with sanctions right now before they get in there and not wait till after they invade Taiwan?
Well, look, we told Russia that we would impose very heavy costs on it if it invaded Ukraine. And the purpose was to deter that action. You wouldn't deter the action by putting in place sanctions before
yes, you can, Madam Chair.
something had occurred.
You can do that. When they built the hospitals on the border, you said that's an incendiary action on your part. Therefore, we're going to do this. If you build another one, we're going to do this. If you build another one, we're going to do that. If you invade, we're going to do this. That can be done. There is a way to deter that if it's structured correctly. And my question is, are you thinking about doing this with China? Yes or no?
We are certainly working together in the administration to have in place a wide range of tools and strategies.
Okay. Now, Madam Chair, I'm very concerned about a speech that was made recently by one of the members of your FSOC. Do you think financial stability of the United States would be threatened if roughly a quarter of the deposits of the United States were not insured by the FDIC? Do you think it will hurt the financial stability of our country if 25% of the bank deposits in this country were not insured by the FDIC?
So I'm not sure what you're referring to, but I would certainly say that deposit insurance has played a critical role in making runs.
I'm sure you would agree,
rare.
Madam Chair. I'm sure you would agree that this is extremely important. The FDIC insurance underpins the stability of our banking economy. If Mr. Stile could just please stand and sit still so I could see the chairman, that'd be great. Thank you. Apologize. Because what happened was Mr. Chopra, and I have his speech right here, made a speech last week in which he made a comment that he thought it was okay to limit access. One of the punitive actions he took or suggested as a result of continued violations by bankers and big banks especially, was to limit access to deposit insurance and put banks directly into receivership. Don't take my remarks wrong here. I think if these guys are doing bad things, they need to be punished, they need to be fined, thrown in jail. I don't care. But what you're doing when you undermine the financial system by saying pulling FDIC insurance, you're hurting the consumers, the customers of those banks, and this is a gentleman who is intended, or should be, worried about consumers. I would hope that you be concerned about that.
Chair Yellen, you and the Treasury Department have refused to sanction Russian oligarch Alisher Usmanin, who is worth $20 billion, and who is also Vladimir Putin's favorite oligarch. And I want to know why. Why would the U.S. Treasury Department issue a special license exempting this oligarch and making it legal for his entities to continue doing business as usual with our American companies when Putin is murdering children, bombing hospitals, raping children, raping women? Why?
So we have sanctioned a large number of Russian
but
oligarchs.
my question is this. There's got to be a reason. We need to get answers to this. The international world is wondering why. And there's got to be a reason. With the terrible deeds, the criminal crimes that this administration is taking. And here you got Putin's favorite oligarch, worth $20 billion, being exempted and given the right to continue doing business. Answer me, please.
Well, the
world wants to know.
I can't give you the details on a specific individual, but I can tell you that every day we continue to impose additional sanctions. This morning we announced just 15 minutes ago a further set of sanctions, including on Putin's children.
Yeah, but
sometimes beyond blocking an individual, when an individual owns companies, has an interest in companies, it's important.
Well, let me ask you this. My time is marching on. Tell me about your Office of Foreign Assets Control. What role did they play in this decision?
They play an important role in preparing sanctions packages against individuals.
Jerry Allen, this is serious here. This is becoming a black mark on our nation. We need an answer as to why. You may have a legitimate within the Treasury's Department Office of Foreign Assets Control about how certain oligarchs would be protected from the deep economic impact on these sanctions. Why Putin's number one oligarch? That sends a false image of what we're doing. And let me tell you, our reputation as the world leader is at stake when these types of things are happening and there's no explanation for it. So help us with that.
I'm not going to offer comments on this specific individual that we haven't sanctioned.
Have you refused to sanction others, key oligarchs? Is there a pecking order?
We have imposed a large number of sanctions on Russian oligarchs and continue to impose further ones where not finished.
We're going to a different economy. And we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
This effort. And China has big plans for this. They intend to seed their digital yuan into the global environment by giving it away to visitors at next winter's Olympics. When they arrive at the airport, they're going to get yuan digital wallets. They're going to receive digital yuan. They're going to use it throughout their visits to Beijing, and then they're going to take it back to their home countries. They see this as a huge advantage. Why? Because who controls the underlying protocols, who controls the underlying standards of the future of money will control the future of money.
Most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids' books. You know, I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York from COVID stories 3. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.